Alrighty, so I think we're ready to get started here. First off, I want to thank Admiral Consulting for taking the time to help us organize this and give us a chance to hopefully get the message out a little bit more. What we're going to be going through today is basically accounts payable automation for financial services industry institutions. So if that sounds like it relates to you, that's something that I'd be happy to discuss. Basically, what we're going to be going through is all the different aspects of accounts payable that are kind of a pain, kind of annoying to work with, and have issues specifically for those businesses that work in their financial services industry. Um, those are the type of businesses that are really trying to grow while staying lean, make sure that all their processes are super dialed in. Because when you're in financial services, employees are going to be one of your biggest expenses, and any ways that you can help them be as efficient as possible is always going to be something that's helpful in the right direction. So let me get started. Just share our intro splash screen here. Make sure. So that's what we'll be talking about here today. Again, thanks to Admiral. I work for a company called Fidesic. My name is Kevin Pritchard, by the way, and I've had over 10 years of experience working with companies and helping them sort of automate their processes, provide consulting and advice on how they can best handle that. And I've had the opportunity to work with many companies in the financial services industry, so I do have a pretty good understanding of what they're looking for. So I'll always be trying to highlight that as we go here. So, just to give you a little background info, what is Fidesic? Fidesic is sort of my framework that I'll be approaching all of this. That's the product that I work with primarily. And what it really is a way to automate and simplify those cumbersome accounts payable tasks for both you, if you're a CFO, accounts payable manager type, or the rest of your team who needs to review and approve these invoices. We are definitely a GP centric company, and it's a GP Dynamics GP centric process. That said, we do work with other ERP systems as well. Our sort of tightest integration is with Dynamics GP, so I'll also be sort of talking about this in a Dynamics GP framework here today. So, what are the common problems that people face? And these are problems that pretty much every company faces. I'm going to highlight sort of the ways in which these relate to those in the financial services industry whenever possible throughout this. And we'll go into these in great detail, and I'll show you around a bit as well in terms of what Fidesic itself can offer. The first thing that we focus on primarily is being able to reduce your total overhead on your accounts payable entry side with invoice capture. So we'll talk about that. A lot of people talk about OCR. A lot of people talk about capture. I will definitely go into some details on that. Another important thing that is critical is going to be visibility and reporting. That's something that people in finance especially care about. So we'll talk about that in a detailed way. And, more importantly, what can you do with that visibility, right? If it's just plain visibility, that's one thing. But if you're able to actually make decisions and sort of change how you do business because of that visibility, that's a totally different story. Another thing that we'll be talking about, because that's a pain that people face, is everybody wants to grow their business. Nobody wants to get hung up on having to hire and hire and hire just because transaction volume has increased. I probably don't have to tell you that's especially important now. If you're watching this in the recorded version, it's December 2021. Old time capsule for you. It's pretty hard to hire right now. So just very important to make sure that we have ways to continue to grow without being dependent on continually hiring. And then, of course, tight controls. Not having control over the process is something that people say to me a lot. That's things that they're concerned about. They're getting their bills paid for the most part, but they feel like they've lost the handle on it and have lost all control. So, reducing overhead generally. I talked about this initially in the framework of invoice capture, and that is definitely one of the easiest and best ways to just reduce your total amount of staff required time right out of the gate. Invoice capture, everybody talks about it. There are lots of different ways to do data capture. There's a million different services out there. Um, Fidesic, the company that, or the product that I work with, um, I think that we've really got it dialed in a couple different ways, especially for those in finance. A lot of the OCR solutions or data capture solutions out there are going to require like someone to manage these templates and make sure they're up to date. And, if anything gets bounced out, it is up to somebody to figure out what was going on with it. Ours is more of like a managed capture service that we take care of all that legwork. So basically, you can just throw invoices off, put them into the capture box, and you know that they're going to be captured in an accurate way and sent back to you. So that can massively, massively reduce the amount of time spent just doing that entry. The other easy way to reduce your overhead is to automate everything that makes sense to automate. A top thing on that list is going to be your invoice approval workflow. And this also relates to payment approval workflow as well. We do support both of those. And basically, you just set up a framework. After that auto capture, we're then going to automatically send it to the correct approver. And that's when, these are the types of things that you can't potentially automate. You still need a formal authorization from somebody, and you need a record of that taking place. That's great. We'll make sure that that's an easy process to do, and we'll automate as much of that as we possibly can. But, that little human intervention, human sign off is still going to be something that you have and still something that you're going to have for audit purposes later. Another easy way to reduce overhead, and I feel like this is already pretty common in the financial services industry, is just to outsource your check printing. Nobody wants to print checks. Back at the beginning of this whole COVID pandemic here, we got quite an influx of people that realized they had left their check printer back at the office. And, that makes it pretty pressing need for people to come up with a new solution. So we got a whole influx of people. But, it's obvious that printing checks is sort of a waste of effort unless that's something you specialize in. It always makes sense to automate that. So that's definitely something that is an easy, low-hanging fruit to take care of, and we can take care of that with Fidesic specifically. And then another great way to just sort of reduce your total overhead is to let your vendors sign up for ACH and drive your vendors to ACH as much as possible. So that's definitely something that we can help out with as well. So I'll touch on each one of these in a little bit of detail here. Let me just pull up. Okay, cool. So I have a demo test account set up for Fidesic, and I'll just be kind of highlighting things quickly. Obviously, we're not going to go into a full demo here. I just wanted to highlight a couple things. First thing is the invoice inbox. This is where you can set up your data capture. So you'll have your own unique OCR email address, and everything that you send into that is going to be captured automatically. Like I mentioned, it's more of a managed OCR box, so you're not going to have to, manage templates, anything like that. Just send it into your custom OCR box and everything will be captured and taken care of for you. The next thing is once that comes out, that's going to be pushed into our approval workflow engine. Like I mentioned, this exists on payments and an invoice approval workflow. So you'll have access to do both of those. These rules can be based on anything that was captured during that invoice capture process initially. So we can route it based on vendors, based on amounts, based on departments, GL codes. There's lots of flexibility in terms of how we can route things out for approval. In terms of check fulfillment, that's something that we can also provide. So we have payments that have been sent out. There's a payment approval process. Once these payments are approved, we're automatically going to print this out and send it out on your behalf. And what's really cool about our service is there is a self-service vendor portal as well. And what that'll allow your vendors to do is opt in for ACH payments. So next time around when you send those payments, approve them. It'll be the same approval process, but those vendors will then be opted in for ACH, and we can do an automatic direct ACH payment to that vendor on your behalf. So it makes it really easy to just sort of adapt in that way. So the next thing that's really important, especially in the finance industry, is going to be visibility and reporting. And like I alluded to earlier, it's cool. Well, we have this visibility. What can we do about it? So I'll try to talk about that as well. One of the coolest things or the most useful things is we try to push out that line of visibility as far forward as we can. So as soon as anything's submitted to that OCR inbox, you now have the ability to track it. So whether or not it's approved, whether or not it needs to be paid now, needs to be paid later, as soon as that invoice is captured, you're set. You'll have visibility and you'll be able to keep track of it. The other nice thing that you'll have the ability to do is run reports that'll show you where your slowdowns and bottlenecks are, and that'll enable you to figure out who in the approval process is not doing their job, who's taking their time, and who's doing a good job as well. You'll also have that ability. So based on that, you can talk to specific people, make sure that they understand that, hey, we're trying to pay these bills quickly. We need you to do that, and that can help drive it. And then once you're able to do that, that allows you to either pay things much, much faster with the hopes of capturing discounts on those invoices that were impossible before. Or if somebody's sending you a net 60 invoice, maybe don't pay it immediately, right? Like, I don't have to explain to people in finance why that's a good idea. But when you have full control over the process start to finish, you have options like that. It makes it way easier to have options like that. And we can set up some auto rules based on payment due dates as well. So, if something's not coming due, you can still have the visibility and you'll still have the control over it, but it won't really be something that's a pressing issue. And you can actually pay it at the time that makes most sense for your business. And then, of course, you'll have access to see where all this is happening. And what's nice is you'll have access to all of this from a web portal as well. So CFO type users, CEOs, anybody who's trying to get like a macro perspective on what's going on might not have access to the accounting system in like a meaningful way, or be that familiar with it. So we can push that information out through a web portal, and then you can access it anytime, anywhere. So each user will have their own unique view, and you'll be able to see sort of month over month spending, what accounts are associated with it. And then there's a whole slew of reports built in as well. So we can get aging, we can run an accrual report. We can see how many invoices are in each approver's count. So we can see where sort of the holdups are. There's lots of different options. And one of the ways I like to view this is if you just go to the manage users page on this, you can see what's pending in each individual user's queue. So I can see that this person has 3 payments pending. And if there were any pending invoices for approval, we'd be able to see that on a user by user basis. And if I just click that link, we'll be able to quickly see what payments are pending and what status they're in. So it gives you total transparency. And then, with this total transparency, it gives you the ability to pay those invoices faster, capture discounts, and beyond that, just see what's going on. So one of the other important things to take into account on this is everybody wants to grow their business and nobody wants to be dependent on continual hiring to continue growing that business. The dream is a perfectly scalable business. You keep your core team and shoots up. We've already talked about the automation piece. We've talked about outsourcing data capture, check printing. So the only thing left to do throughout this whole process is basically approve and make sure they make it into your accounting system. So those are the 2 tasks, and those are extremely scalable tasks. So the approval process, we've designed it to be as quick and easy as we possibly could. And that makes it more or less endlessly scalable. We have users that approve 500 to 1,000 invoices a month through our system. So there's really no cap on that. It can go as high as you potentially need it. The thing that, limits your growth without hiring is going to be that invoice capture, that invoice data entry, that check fulfillment, that payment fulfillment, just shuffling paper around at larger companies to get the necessary approvals is a full-time job. So we can automate all of those tasks, and really you just have to focus on approving. Obviously you'll want somebody in accounts payable to oversee and make sure that they're paying things on time, sort of being the head of this process. But I've specifically worked with companies that have doubled and tripled in size from the time that they launched with our system, and they haven't had to hire any additional accounts payable staff during that time. So they have kept their core team. Their core team has their controls, they have their visibilities, they have their job descriptions, and they're able to really continue to grow their business without having to worry about continually hiring. And then the other cool thing, so common framework for financial services companies is to have lots of different companies, lots of different entities, legal entities that they sort of are under one umbrella. A nice way that our system is set up is that basically you'll have one login, you'll log in, and then you'll be able to switch between your entities as you need. So you don't have to, juggle 15 different logins, and you can switch between companies without having to log back out. So it makes things easy there. The other thing that people, especially in finance, this is also true for the publicly traded world and for the nonprofit world, but audit is just a reality, right? It's going to happen. It's a thing that comes up frequently. It's a pain. And we try to set up this whole system in a way that makes audit as easy as possible. So, um, for example, if you need to run a report of all your invoice copies with the formal approvals on it, well, great. That's a built-in report in Fidesic. So you can just run a quick report out of our system that has all of the formal approvals and has the original PDF copies of those documents all contained in a single report. So normally that's a nightmare, right? You got to go through your filing cabinet if you're still on a paper-based process. Even if you're on an electronic approval process, trying to get a consolidated report can be a real pain. Another thing that we can really help out with on this is on the payment side. So everybody knows about signing a check. We know what signing a check means. It's kind of a pain to do, but it is a formal auditable action, right? It was signed by this person. That's how we know this payment went out. A lot of companies sort of break down when they start transitioning over to ACH processing payments of vendors. They sort of lose that direct connection of approval. So that's something that we maintain. When you're sending out a payment that's an ACH, great. We still have that formalized approval. We have that digital approval. And that will line up really exactly the same as if you were signing a check. So I like to think of our approval process on the payment side as just like a digital version of signing checks. It holds up during audit. And then the final thing that I want to highlight on this to make you in a good spot for audit, like obviously running reports is great, getting people exactly what they need is great, but we have audit access that we can give to our system, which basically is a read-only view of everything. They can log in, check everything out that they need, search around, make sure that all the approvals match what they're hoping, and then you're good. Give them access to what they need, and that makes it simple. So, those are really what I was trying to get through here today. So, if we go back to our initial here, specific to finance, the things that we try to focus on, again, we want to reduce that overhead, increase visibility, allow you to grow, and maintain those tight controls. So I'll end this now for the recorded version, so we won't have any questions. So if you have any questions after that, stick around. If you're watching this recorded, thanks for taking the time to do so. And always feel free, if you want more information, you can reach out to us. You can head to fidesic.com, and that'll have lots of options to get in touch. You can reach out to me directly if you're watching this later on, or if you're a part of the live, you can just email me at kevin@fidesic.com, FIDESIC.com, and I'll be happy to help out. So thanks for taking the time, and hope you all have a great day.